Cole Fine Guns and Gunsmithing, your one-stop shop for everything fine European shotguns. Visit us on the web at www.colegun.com.
Okay, it's those two things together. Okay, and so what Jonna is cueing me in on is yeah, if a person's face is very, very average in terms of the spacing of their eyes, the width of the jawline, the set of the cheekbones, you can take one look at them and say, on a target gun, they need 1/4 inch of cast at the heel and 3/8 at the toe, because we always twist it out a little bit to follow the line of the shoulder. If an individual's eyes are set a little bit closer together, they have wider cheekbones or jawline, and they need a little bit more cast. If their face is fairly narrow and their eyes are set a little bit farther apart, then they need less cast. As I say, I don't want you to get too far in your head about that. It's an important dimension, okay? But going back to what I was going to say that Gil and I would talk about and agree on, okay, is that we're better off to have a little bit too much drop and a little bit too much cast, okay? What we want to do is, we want to, I don't need to chump in your lap there. What we want to do is we want to get the wood on the gun stock out of the way of the shooter's face, so that you can move your head as you're because we're not looking at the rib when we're shooting. We're not looking at the rib, we're looking at the target. We want the rib to be under our shoulder eye, but we're looking at where the target's coming from. So if I have a target coming from the left to the right, I've got the gun up here, I'm looking at the target, I'm not touching the stock. Now as the target's coming, I'm gonna move my gun, and my head is gonna move to the stock. As Gil says, I'm gonna match the speed and I'm gonna pull the trigger, okay? If I don't have enough cast, and if the cone is too high, then what's going to happen is my face is going to run into the wood, and I'm going to shoot to the high end of the left of my target. And I need to intuitively be able to develop to shoot the gun where my hands want the gun to be shooting, because I'm not looking at the target and looking at the rib and making a measurement, okay? And that's Gil's deal, so I'm not going to say any more than that. He's far more competent and capable of experience of explaining the kind of technique. I'm a mechanic, you know. I'm the guy that fixes your car. This car.
Look at it, look at this. Can you see the cast on this stock? Can you see it?
Oh yeah, baby.
All right.
Yeah.
Show them what we're talking about.
Yeah.
All right, you see how the butt stock?
The butt stock is, if I hold this up, as I'm gonna kind of walk across the front, try and align the center line of the rib, and then look and notice the stock is way to this side on the back end. Can you all see that? That's called cast off for a right-handed shooter. So this is Gil's gun. What he's done is he's got this stock bent away a little bit more than average. It gets it out of his way. He's also got more drop here at the nose. This is flatter here, so that when he as a shooter brings the gun up to his face, he's not having to push his face down into the gun. Okay.
It's also got 3/16 offset nose to heel in the cone.
On the cone
to get
as well.
it further out of the way.
Yeah. Okay. As I'm coming down here, we've talked about a cast. Another one is pitch, another dimension that we work with. The pitch is simply the angle of this butt back and forth. When we shorten the stock to get it the correct length for your youth shooter, we also want to be mindful that we want the whole surface area of this butt to be against their shoulder. And so if they're a little heavier, we can turn it this way. If they're more slender and they're really forward, we can turn it this way. The whole idea is that what recoil is the enemy. We want to make the gun as comfortable as possible. The more surface area that we can have of the butt end of the gun up against the shoulder, the more we're going to even out that recoil energy. Spread it out over a larger surface area. It's more of a push rather than a punch. Last but not least, okay, a really, really important overlooked piece that we get is the grip, okay? So the grip is all about the size of the individual's hand, okay? It's not so much how big it is here for our purposes, it's where it is in relation to the trigger, okay? And what the loving parent does is they get their young person into the shooting sport. They go to Walmart or Dick's Sporting Goods or Bass Pro Shop or whatever, and the clerk sells them a shotgun. It's always an adult shotgun. And so the parent, understanding that the gun is too long, they take it to the local gunsmith who maybe works on AR-15s and Glocks and an occasional Remington 870, but is not an expert in clay target shotguns. And that gunsmith shortens the stock appropriately, okay? And now what happens is that this young shooter goes out, and instead of being able to mount the gun and have their hand comfortably on the grip, in order for them to reach the trigger with their finger, they have to choke up on the gun. So now what happens is we have a very uncomfortable angle with this hand rolled up, and we start the chicken wing. So the shooter goes to mount the gun, and they're up here like this. And it's a real awkward, uncomfortable thing. If this hand, for a right-hand shooter, if their right hand is not happy, okay, everything else unravels. The grip has got to be correct. That does not mean that you have to have a custom stock made. Absolutely not at all. The length of the grip just needs to be reasonably correct for the size of the shooter's hand. And that can be accomplished by taking some Bondo, for example, and putting it inside the grip. We use prosthetic molding epoxy because it's a little easier for us to work with, and it's just a better thing. But we build these grips out. We just bring them out a little bit for the young shooter. And that's a really important piece of this, because if the grip isn't right, you know, your shooter is handicapped. So what we really want to look at is when we get the length right and we've got the shooter up there, you want to look at the way this hand lies in the grip. And if they're putting the gun up to their shoulder like this, and then reaching up here like this, there's a problem there, and it needs to be attended to, okay? I think we're about wrapping this up. Okay. So we want to talk about the methods and modifications that can be used in order to create a proper fit for the shooter. Okay. We talked about length of pull adjustments. Okay. And how are we going to figure this out? Okay. We don't expect that you all to have a relationship with a competent gunsmith at this point. Okay. So perhaps this is going to be Dad's job in order to sort this out. The first thing that you can do is you can simply take the shotgun, take the recoil pad off of it, take the pad right off the back of the gun, and then have your son or daughter mount the gun and take a look at this elbow. Okay, we want to get this elbow at that nice 90-degree bend. If the stock looks good now, say it had a 1-inch thick pad on it, if you've taken it off and now the shooter can mount it, you've got a 90-degree bend, that means that's the correct length. Well, you're not going to send them out to shoot their 12-gauge gun with just a raggedy edge piece of wood on there. That's not going to be fairly comfortable. So what Dad needs to do is he needs to cut 1 inch off of that stock and then screw the recoil pad back on there.
Maybe Mom's going to do it.
Maybe
too.
Mom's going to do it. We don't care who does it, but we want it to get done. And what we're not looking for is we're not looking for a thing of beauty. Okay, you know, understand that at where we're at starting new shooters. Okay, the gun needs to be respected, yes, but it's a tool. Okay, it is an object that the shooter is going to use as their tool to participate in a sport. You know, we want to not focus on the object, the gun. We want to focus our energy on our youth shooter learning how to shoot properly. So what we're trying to do with all this gun stock fit is we're just trying to take the problem that could be improper gun fit, get that out of the way so that our shooter can focus on their technique. All right? So going back to the length of pull, you know, if the pad doesn't fit perfectly on the end of the stock, it doesn't matter. It just needs to be the correct length, okay? If your shooter shoots very much, within a couple of years, they're gonna have worn that gun out, they're gonna have grown, okay? You're gonna need to put a spacer or put that block of wood back on there with some Elmer's carpenter glue and some drywall screws, whatever it takes, okay? I'm saying don't be shy. Okay, we're not typically buying this. I don't think that anybody in this room has bought their 10-year-old daughter a Krieghoff K80, a Blaser F3, a Perazzi High Tech. What are some of the other ones? Okay, we're probably in CZs and basic Berettas or Brownings if you're if they're lucky. Okay, so the gun that you buy is the least expensive thing that you're ever going to spend in this sport. If your youth shooter stays in this sport for 5 or 6 years, okay? You have paid for that gun in shells and targets over and over and over and over. So we don't want to hamstring our child by having them shoot a gun that does not fit them, because we're afraid that if we do anything to the gun, we're going to reduce the value. Guess what, folks? I got news for you. None of these guns that y'all own are worth anything anyway. I mean, they really aren't, okay? They really aren't. A good gun starts at $5,000, okay? So if you've spent less than $5,000, you've got, in effect, a disposable tool that you should be willing to modify in any way that's necessary in order for your youth shooter to be able to use that effectively and get better, okay? Length of pull, we've got that length of pull adjustment down. If the cone height is not correct, if it's too high, shave it down. Shave it down. Get out your rasp. Shave it down, get some sandpaper, sand it down, put a little bit of Danish oil on it to smooth it up, okay? Lemon pledge if you want. Do whatever you need to do. Get the wood out of the way. If the stock cone is too low and your shooter is mounting the gun and they're looking at the back of the lever, put some Dr. Scholl's moleskin on it and build it up, raise it up. You know, if you need to, then put a little bit of electrical tape or a piece of duct tape over it. We don't care what it looks like, okay? What we do know is, myself, as a professional gunsmith, when I see a parent come into my gun shop and they've got their young'un in tow and they've got a gun that's got some Bondo on it and some duct tape and electrical tape, you know, and a good ding here and there, I know that I am dealing with a family that's committed to making the effort to try and get their youth shooter be able to shoot comfortably and successfully. I'm willing to spend some time with that individual, okay? I would far rather have that individual, that family as a customer, than the family that's just gone and bought $15,000 on a shiny new gun from a different gun dealer and then brings it to me and says, this don't fit my kid, can you make it fit, okay? I'm looking to work with people. I will spend the time. I will take the time that's necessary to help people that are committed to helping their children, okay? So we've cut the cone down now. If we really are if we've got a child with a really wide face and they're looking down the side of their gun, we'll take the gun, we'll bend the stock, okay? Don't do it yourself, Dad, okay? Don't do it yourself. We bend stocks, you don't bend stocks, okay? We talked about bringing the grip forward, okay? Using some epoxy. There's a special type of epoxy. It's a prosthetic molding epoxy that can be used to bring that forward. A little bit more involved. Perhaps Dad can use some Bondo, okay? Perhaps Mom really wants to get jiggy with it, you know? Bondo's kind of like mixing up some cake batter, okay? Custom stocks, we save those for advanced shooters that generally are now 18, 19, 20 years old. They have worked through their technique, and we know that if...
For more information on our lineup of Berettas, Parazzis, Zolis, Blaser, and other fine European shotguns, visit us on the web at www.coldgun.com. You can see more videos like this on our YouTube channel, and you can also join in on the conversation on our Facebook page at Cold Gunsmithing Inc.